Do you think David had a strategy when he went into battle with Goliath? Absolutely. David had a strategy. Strategy is about choices, what to do and what not to do. David knew that he could never beat Goliath by playing by Goliath's rules. And what was Goliath's rules? In close, hand-to-hand combat, where he can use his greatest advantages, his size and his strength. So what did David do? He changed the rules of engagement. First, he kept his distance. He didn't get close to Goliath, where Goliath could get those massive hands on David, because if he did, it would have been lights out. The second thing he did was he used Goliath's greatest asset, his size, against him. Goliath was too big and too slow to react quickly enough when David launched that rock like a missile. David won because he developed a strategy that played to his strengths. Not Goliath's, his strengths. And his strengths were speed and quickness. Strategy is everything. So, if you're a single store operator competing against the big boys, do you think you need a strategy? You cannot outperform competition if you play and accept their trade-offs. And if you're playing by the market leader's rules, that's usually competitive suicide. So what do you do as a single store operator? You be like David. You change the rules of engagement. You develop a strategy that plays to your strengths, not theirs. If you're one of those big companies out there and you have multiple stores, do you have any guarantees that the success that you've had up to this point is going to continue to be a success for you? How do you know someday that you might not be taken down by David or a disruptor? In times of accelerating change, relevance can never be taken for granted. Let me repeat that. In times of accelerating change, relevance can never be taken for granted. Consider the case of Garmin. Garmin was one of the early pioneers in the GPS industry. They got disrupted and they never saw it coming, which is how most disruptors operate. But they dominated the GPS industry until they were disrupted by a 26-year-old software engineer who created a mobile app for a GPS system. That disruptor was not operating in the GPS industry. She was operating in the mobile app industry. So she, quite frankly, wasn't even considering Garmin. She was considering this. As a result of this, Garmin lost 80% of their market cap. Strategy is everything. The current pace of change is like a missile up your tailpipe. Boom! You're irrelevant. If you didn't react quickly enough or if you didn't see it coming. If you're currently behind the change curve, you're already dead. Your obituary just hasn't been written yet. So strategy could be a safeguard to prevent you from getting blindsided. The one thing single store operators have in common with the larger change is money. And when I talk money, I'm talking net profit or EBITDA. I'm not talking about things like sales and gross profit margin and shrink. Those are certainly important metrics, but they're a means to an end. And that end is net profit. It's the only true meaningful metric at the end of the day, bar none. How much money you left with at the end of the day to take to the bank. That's what it's about. I always get amazed by people in some meetings and stuff. We always talk about sales and gross profit margin, sales and gross profit margin. Sales, we never talk about net profit. Isn't that really the end game? So that's what we're going to try to do. Hopefully we'll give you some ideas and a strategy to focus on that today. But I will tell you this, like anything else in life, strategy, it's your choice. You can decide that you don't need a strategy, and you could take a passive approach, and you can let the future come to you, and you can just aimlessly drift in the currents of the market. Or you could develop a strategy, and you can take control with purposeful intent of your future and win.